That's good. So you know where you're going? 8th floor, yeah.
Whatever you go. Yeah.
I just want to, do you need any help with any of that stuff?
No problem. But thank you
Okay.
for reminding me. Well.
Oh, perfect. All right. We'll see you here in a little bit.
You know, as long as you got a drag, I just care there's an image. There's an image. A lot of that stuff is drag. These usually last for about 4 hours. Yeah, we were kind of like one switch, yeah. Basically. What's happening? That happened.
Rachel, I think that issue went away. Whoa, hello. When I screen shared, do you want me to try a screen share and see if it goes away? I need to be a host.
She was working on making a phone.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the pinning.
Okay.
The option over here. Yeah, just.
Okay. Are you seeing the right one? Was that better?
Oh no.
Nope. Oh, you were seeing the right one.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
She should actually be coming. She should be coming.
Yes, she should be.
But she's not.
Uh-oh.
Are you? You're unmuted.
Who, me?
I should be. I'm here. But I'm unmuted over here. Are you on the other end? I'm unmuted here. Why did it both have? Because I need it on mine to be here. Yours is projected to. Mine is only supposed to be updated here. But I'm afraid this is what happened last time. So you're all right. I do have here to here.
Amy, can you talk?
Yeah. Hi. Talking.
It's still not coming through up there.
I hear you guys a lot better though.
Want to switch from your speakers to the external.
Oh no, I need the little, that's right. He had a little,
Oh.
yes.
Are you going?
I gotta get Okay,
How far?
And turn your speaker volume up a
yeah,
little bit,
just get my,
or your headphone jack.
where's my, can you see my, this is the only thing I don't like about these screens, is my, oh, there it is, right there.
Yeah, you're at 100. Is she talking through there now, or?
Can you have her?
Do you want me to talk? Talkie, 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 talk.
Were you ready to get going?
I'm working on it.
System.
Thanks.
Our friends drove her out.
Sound?
Yep. Let's see here.
Their flower farm, they used to have a farm protection or something that defines the nonprofit, they're nonprofit.
Speaker headphone, right?
That's where I got.
So now have her talk.
Hi there.
Yes, but now I have to mute because.
Don't go on any hikes now. I'm all set with that. I have to get into it. If I go on any hikes with Bruce.
Bring a flashlight.
Yeah, bring a flashlight. Right.
All right, I hear a lot of echoes on your end and myself. Let's see if I hear echoes now. I don't. Are we good? Oh, there they are. I can't hear anything. Can you hear me okay? Okay, choosing to farm since we can hear you. So in that case, do you want me to go ahead? Is it time? I think it's time. Okay. Hello. Do you want me to go ahead and get started? I hear nothing on my end, so that's why I'm asking questions into the void.
Okay, how about now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Perfect.
And there's no echo.
Perfect.
Yes. Come up now. Yeah, go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, not yet. She's gonna do her presentation and then we'll come up. So I guess we don't want to close
You're gonna
it.
set the audience up here?
I think so.
Okay,
Yeah.
do it.
Unless you want to do it, Bruce. I
No,
mean,
I
you're already
don't.
getting this
I just want
party
to get the ball
going.
on the run.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know. Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
So, I guess Amy, I'll just do a quick introduction and then we'll.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then there's that. All right, so I'm Rachel. I'm with Cornell Cooperative Extension. I work in the capital area. I cover 4 counties. I'm a livestock educator. So that would be the Albany area. And I was part of this project that Amy's going to just talk about, and it's a 3-year project. She'll get into it more. Amy was supposed to be here live, feeling a little under the weather. She's joining us via Zoom, and she is also with Cornell Cooperative Extension, but in the western part. So she's south of Buffalo and is our poultry guru. So thank you for coming and joining us. And after her presentation, we, just because of her absence, we're going to change it up a little bit and have our volunteers, Bruce, and I don't know if Caitlin's here yet, but there she is, to be our moderators for the farmer panel. And, you know, we have questions to ask, but we would love for you guys to ask any questions first and foremost. So, Amy, I'm gonna have you take it away.
Okay. So I do hear a little bit of echoing. I'm going to ignore it. I'm assuming it's just an artifact of what's going on in the Zoom room. Thank you to everybody who put in the effort to get me here via Zoom. I ended up with some really gnarly bronchitis, and right now I'm like double sucking on lozenges, and I've had all of my tea, and I've got Delsum on board. So hopefully I'll be able to talk without choking halfway through. If I pause, that is why I do. But I'm going to give you a short overview of our project, and Rachel pretty well introduced who I am. So I've been working with Cornell Cooperative Extension since December of 2019. Prior to that, I worked in the commercial poultry industry, the layer industry for 2 years. Then prior to that, I worked in the broiler industry for 2 years. So I've got a pretty good understanding of commercial production, mostly in Pennsylvania, but all across the nation as well. So this project is, today's presentation is based on the SARE project that we're doing, and that is optimizing the economic return of pasture-raised, slow growth, and conventional broilers. Now, this project essentially takes 34 farms and follows 2 of their flocks each year over 2 consecutive years. And what we're doing is we'll follow the production parameters of that flock, the financials of the enterprise, the whole broiler enterprise for our farm. And then we're going to benchmark those farmers themselves. So year 1, we just get the data. They figure out what they want to change. And then year 2, we take their data, benchmark it against themselves, and see if the changes that they made after the end of year 1 are getting them there where they want to be in year 2 in terms of encountering profitability. What we found in the basis for this project is there was a lot of research done, not on small flocks, but on flocks like Soliton style and Siskovich style flocks. So flocks of multiple thousands of birds rather than birds processed under the 1,000 bird exemption, which is an exemption that we're allowed in New York, where we can process up to 1,000 broilers on farm without any regulatory oversight. So a lot of folks in New York State are raising broilers with that in mind. But the numbers that we're seeing to benchmark our pricing off of is based on these Siskovich and Soliton style models, which have a huger economy of scale, which is really putting the smaller producers at a disadvantage when they go to price their birds. What we're finding and what the research suggests, not in our study, but the previous literature suggests that broiler farmers are breaking even at $4.50 a pound retail, which is a lot less than what broiler farmers were charging when we wrote the grant. So we're hoping to get farmers to the point of where they're more profitable. And if they're not, and they decide that the enterprise is something they don't want to do, we want to show them the data so that they can make an informed decision and get out if they want to. Now, as Rachel said, we're collecting data over 3 years, so we will have 136 total flocks that are on this project. The stars in the map represent where our farmers are in New York State. We do have a huge bias in Western New York. Part of that is 3 educators of 6 or 7 on the project are in Western New York. So that's why we have so much of a bias over there. But we are going to take the data and we're going to average it together, and we're going to develop statewide averages for production, both what you can expect from birds at certain ages, what you can expect from slow growth and conventional strains, so Cornish cross strains of broilers at certain ages, and then what are farmers charging and are they profitable? So I will be presenting some data today. This is from the 2022 flocks. Right now we're in the process of getting 2023 flock data back in and analyzing it, so I don't have that available now. But the data that you'll see is based on 18 farmers and 33 total flocks. And these are all preliminary, so I wouldn't base 100% of things what you do off of this, but it's a good start to get an idea of what we're seeing. Okay. All right. Oop. Okay. All right, so in terms of efficiencies of broiler systems, we want to look at the type of bird that we're raising. In our study, 29 flocks were Cornish cross and 4 were slow growth. And of those flocks, 6 were sexed male, and 27 were sexed straight run. Geez, even double lozenges aren't working really well today. Okay. Okay, Rachel.
Yep.
Can I tap you really quick?
Yep.
Hold on.
Okay, well, I mean, everybody can
I
read.
can't talk.
Okay.
I thought I could, but it's not coming out. Do you feel comfortable walking through this at all, or do you want me to kind of stumble through it as I can and take breaks?
I guess I can read through it and then you add where you think needs to be adding.
That would be amazing, and I'm so sorry to put you on the spot.
I'm just gonna suck more. So,
We should make sure that the online participants can hear you.
do you want me to stand over there? That's fine with me.
Yeah,
Yep.
you might have to, I don't know, like use the mic.
Does it not come through there? Because that's where,
No, you're not gonna be on.
because if I use the mic, it's gonna be all.
Only if
Now that she's muted, it'll probably be okay.
I'm gonna try it. Let's do it. Try it. One must be smarter than the microphone though. I only see a mute button. Is that still a? Yeah,
If you-
hold it and it's got it. Okay.
Maybe mute your.
She won't be able to hear me then.
I can hear you. It's echoey. I was hearing you perfectly fine without the mic.
Yeah, shut off the mic and
Yep.
have that.
All right, well, if you have anybody online, just make sure that they can hear me, okay? Yep. All right, so, I mean, everybody's just seen this slide, but, the fastest growing are your Cornish, 2 pounds of feed per 1 pound live gain, and then they process 6 to 8 weeks. And, you know, obviously white feathered, so no weird colored pin feathers. This is not energetic compared to, I have energetic Cornish crosses sometimes, but compared to other breeds, moderately sensitive to disruptions in environment. Yep. I got the finger. All right, growth and efficiency, for the slow growth, variable by breed. And I know some people use the Kosher Kings, and there's so many other breeds out there. One of my farms has the Kosher Kings. 3 to 4 pounds of feed per 1 pound live weight, processed 9 to 14 weeks, for a 4.5 pound carcass. Actually, one of the farms in the study, I just know because I work with them, they get between 3.5 and 4 pounds, and they're happy with that. White, red, barred feathered. More foraging activity and typically more robust than the Cornish crosses. They certainly stand up higher, obviously, and many of you have seen these different types. You know, the only problem with the Cornish is that they do tend, you know, their legs strength and they tend to sit on the ground more. So ground, your type of ground can be an issue for them. This might have to be an Amy thing, so.
I was gonna say, like, if I have those 2 minutes to suck on the lozenge to coat my throat again, I think it's gonna be okay. So, all right. So what we found in our 2022 flocks is that the average age of birds was just over 7 weeks prior to processing. Many people choose their processing dates not based on the birds and how they're performing necessarily, but based on what they can get for processing slots. Most of our farmers are going through a processor. What they're finding is that the average feed per bird at 50 days, the consumption is just over, or just about 13.5 pounds of feed, which means that for every 2 pounds of feed put into those birds, you're getting a pound of live bird gain out of that bird. And that is about what we're seeing in regards to industry standards. So we're not seeing a huge advantage. The average feed conversion ratio that we're seeing is a little better. So the birds are growing a little better on pasture on average. But I do think once we have more birds in the study pooled together, we're going to see a more an average that's more towards what it should be rather than, having any sort of bias in either direction. The average weight of birds at 7.14 weeks is about 6.5 pounds, so pretty good sized bird, live weight. And the graph on the right hand side is just essentially showing what you can expect the birds to weigh live based on their age. And it follows, I didn't put a trend line in here, but it follows a relatively steady trend line. In the data on the left, so the data when I present any data that has numbers in it, I've taken out birds or flocks that have had high mortality rates, feed restrictions. And what I mean by feed restrictions is we had some producers that would feed like kitchen scraps rather than feed. We had some producers that were feeding like a certain number of pounds per bird per day rather than ad libitum. And we had some data books that came back with missing feed data. So anything with that is not included in those averages, but I did include them on the graph. And this is interesting because when we look at that graph, what you'll see is there's a couple of outliers. And these are, this one, and I think these two right here, these are outliers from those deviations I didn't include in the standard data. But generally we follow a pretty good trend line. With our slow growth birds, we don't have nearly enough data to make any conclusions, but I just wanted to throw the data up there to show you. Average age is 55 days, so 7.86 weeks. We did have a producer that liked to weigh his birds basically every week from 5 weeks on. And because he did that, I think we had more data than we needed. I don't think anybody's processing a kosher king or a freedom ranger at 8 weeks. I don't think it's economically feasible. We'll see at the end of the day, but that's my outward opinion. What we found at these 8-week-old slow growth birds is that the average feed consumption was about 14 pounds, so about the same as a Cornish cross. Your average live weight was 5.81 pounds is not right. That's a typo. The average feed conversion though was 5.81 a feed per pound of live bird. So essentially it's about triple what it is for a Cornish cross, even at this young age. And what we know is at younger ages, birds are more efficient. So these are just not super efficient birds. And like I said, we'll be able to figure out what the actual state average is once we get more data in. So I just want to put some numbers to this to kind of make it click for those of you who are numbers people. I'm going to say we're going to raise Cornish cross to 8 weeks and the slow growth bird to 12 weeks. Now, following this math, if we have a 7.5 pound live bird at 8 weeks, that's 6 pound carcass and a feed conversion of about 2.2. That's industry standard. And I think that 2.03 feed conversion that we saw from the project will increase as those birds get older. You multiply 7 pounds of live weight times 2.2 pounds of feed per pound gain. That bird is consuming 16.5 total pounds of feed. And so if you're charging $4.50 a pound, which should be in theory the minimum you charge for your birds, times 6 pound carcass, you're gonna get $27 for that chicken that you raised in 8 weeks. Cool. So looking at slow growth, we're gonna do the same thing, but we're gonna assume that they're 5.6 pounds live, 4.5 average carcass. Their feed conversion is a little higher. This is the standard that I found out of the Freedom Ranger production manual. This is not what we saw in the study, just FYI. So we essentially take the pounds of live gain times the estimated consumption value, and we get 16.8 pounds of feed consumed. So about the same amount of feed consumed, of course, taking 4 weeks longer. If we charge $4.50 a pound for the slow growth birds, we have a 4.5 pound carcass, we're only returning $20.25 a bird. So when you're looking at these two birds side by side and you're trying to make a decision of what should I raise, keep in mind, if you charge the same price, you're going to get less per bird. And hold on. You're going to get less per bird, and it takes 50% longer to turn around a flock. Okay. What this shows is as the broiler ages, their efficiency decreases. This is the production manual from Cobb Mantress. Cobb is one of the leading genetic profiles of broiler chickens in the United States. It's usually Cobb or Roth. Those are basically the two big ones that are left. Everything got gobbled up by those guys. So this is a pretty good representation of most of the Cornish that you'll come across at 7 weeks. This is all in grams, but the main thing I want to show you is this cumulative feed conversion. This is that efficiency I was talking about, pounds of feed consumed per pound of live gain put on. And at 7 weeks, that's 1.76 pounds of feed per pound of gain, in theory, under perfect conditions in an industrial setting. If you take those birds out another 2 weeks, their conversion is 2 pounds of feed per pound of gain. So in theory, processing broilers earlier is going to result in birds that are more efficient. Rachel, could you take this one, please?
Yeah. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with it, but you can read the chart. So
It's a culmination of our flocks and what their efficiency was.
okay.
Sorry.
And I just want to preface also that with this project, everybody got their own scale to weigh the birds with, so that's how we're able to do all of this. I don't even know where to begin with this. So
Okay, I'm gonna try. So the number of flocks in the left column is the number of flocks that we measured. Their age I separated out, so essentially 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 weeks. Feed consumed per bird, average live weight per bird. So obviously, as the birds increase in age, they're consuming more feed and they're gaining more weight. But here's their feed conversion, pounds of feed per pound of gain. And you can see as those birds age, and this is our study data, it's following the exact same trends that we'd expect based on the production parameters of commercial, conventionally raised birds. They are becoming less efficient as they grow. And quite honestly, at 9 weeks, it's taken them about 2.5 pounds of feed per pound of live gain, versus if you process those birds closer to 5 weeks, which is KFC sized, for all intents and purposes, they're closer to 1.5. Most of us are probably falling around, this 1.8 to 2.
I don't suggest waiting 9 to 10 weeks if you use Cornish crosses.
No,
You will have losses.
You will have a lot of losses. We'll probably get into that at some point. Not in this presentation, but so slow growth birds, again, we don't have enough data to really come up with conclusions here, but it's following a similar trend. This is all over the place, in part because we had such few flocks, and I think there were 3 different kinds of slow growth birds that were like kosher kings, jackies, and freedom rangers. And each of them grow in a different way. So they have different efficiencies within those different breeds. So this is not conclusive, but this is what we found in case you were curious. Okay. All right, so chick growth rate and costs per chick vary on quite a few things. First is breed. Obviously, we just covered that. Males versus females versus straight run. Males are more efficient than females, and straight run is a mix of the two. Hatchery, it's, outwardly some hatcheries charge more than others. But the other thing to consider is that different hatcheries have different strains of broilers. So not only for slow growth, but also for Cornish cross. I know that there are some hatcheries out there that hatch and sell or buy and resell these Cobb Ross genetics. And those birds are going to grow like stupid crazy, and they're going to perform like they're made to. Sometimes hatcheries breed their own lines of Cornish cross, and I am not going to say anything about any specific hatchery, but some hatcheries have better genetics than others. And it becomes apparent when you're growing out a flock and you compare side by side. Some of them might not perform as well. Could be weight gain, it could be the integrity of their cardiorespiratory system, that sort of thing. The number ordered is going to influence the price you pay. This is a hatchery where if you're buying over 100 birds, it's about $3 a bird. If you buy 10, they're closer to $4. And of course, shipping costs should be considered. Some hatcheries include shipping with their bird costs. but others don't. And I've seen shipping costs of up to $40 for 100 chicks. So just keep an eye out for that if you're ordering birds and you're not familiar with the hatchery. Very quickly, males are more efficient than females. Again, this is in grams. This is a metric chart. It's from a Cobb Van Trest production guide. And what I want to bring your attention to is, so this is a female at 7 weeks. She weighs 6,000 grams. And a male at the exact same age is 700 grams more, which if you convert that, that's about a little over 1.2, 1.3 pounds more for a male at the same age. So genetically, the males are predisposed to be about a pound heavier than the females at a given age. And males tend to convert feed better than females. So at 7 weeks, a male is able to convert feed 1.7 pounds per pound of gain, whereas the females are 1.8. So females grow slower and they finish at a lighter weight. And depending on your market and your goals, this may or may not be for you. We found in our study that there are generally 2 options for feed. Broiler specific feed and starter grower, that's just for chickens. And one of the things that I'm one of those people that will stand on the rooftop and wave my little flag and say, please don't just feed your chickens grass. Grass is a supplement. Grass is not going to provide enough nutrition for those birds on its own. And we'll get into that in a sec because we have some data on that. A commercial feeding program for our Cornish cross is going, so this is from Commercial Poultry Nutrition. It's an amazing book if you don't have it and you want to look into poultry nutrition. 10 out of 10 recommend it. But I pulled the high density diet specifications for broilers from it. So this is, if you want to feed your birds to perform, this is what you feed them. Under 18 days, you'll want to feed them around 22% protein. And as those birds get towards the end of their life, they only need 16 to 18% protein. And what we're finding in our study is that folks are feeding about 21% protein on average. So, and I've seen protein levels of diets of broilers up to 28%, which is a turkey level in terms of protein. So you're overfeeding protein to these guys, which, I mean, if the birds are fertilizing your pasture and you valued the manure for that reason, that's one thing. But if you're trying to, cut pennies here and there, a higher protein feed is going to cost more than a lower protein feed. I know at my mill, a 22% protein cost an extra $2 a hundredweight over a 18% feed. So something to consider if you're really cutting costs. I'm sure that most folks, I can't see the folks in the room, but I'm assuming that most of you have raised broilers in the past. And so feed is the most expensive part of raising broilers. And feed is more expensive. Generally, we're finding the name designation of non-GMO, soy-free, or organic is going to make that feed the most expensive. When we go one level down, name brand versus non-name brand, smaller volumes are more expensive than larger volumes. That can be anything from buying a 20-pound bag of chick feed versus a 50-pound, up to buying bags of feed by the 50-pound or 100-pound bag versus buying it by the ton. Or even in bulk. If you're big enough to buy feed in bulk and haul it around feed wagons and stuff, that's going to be even cheaper. And finally, higher protein. And interestingly, in our 2022 flocks, 5 of those 33 were organically fed, and 2 of those 33 were fed soy-free. Okay, this was super cool. Feeding restrictions is something I didn't anticipate seeing, but what we saw is there were some producers, as I alluded to, who either restricted feed based on a poundage per bird per day, or they fed them scraps and offal to make up their diet. And what we found is the average age of these birds were 12, these were all Cornish. The average age was 12 days older. They took 0.86 pounds more feed per bird to finish. They finished an average of 1.2 pounds lighter, and their feed to conversion ratio was it took an extra 2/3 of a pound of feed per pound of gain. So my recommendation out of this, and we'll probably get more data on this year to add to this, but my recommendation is don't limit feed your birds, feed them ad libitum. and they're going to grow their best. And you might say, I'm going to skip a little bit because I know I'm taking a lot of time, but you might say, well, what about leg problems and that sort of thing? Well, what we're finding is that for mortalities, leg issues were actually the least, not a huge problem at all. So each farmer's flock came with a major cause of mortality, and in those causes of mortality, leg issues were only an issue for one flock. And that might have been because they moved the wagons. The birds got stuck underneath and hurt their legs, sort of thing. Most of the death was unattributed to anything. Shipping stress was a huge one. We had a huge amount of brooder mortality, all things considered, and then just failure to thrive. And I found those as areas for farmers to improve on going forward. And we saw some of that. But then we came to this year. And you could just show hands so everybody else in the room can see. Who raised birds this year and their first flock of the year just died like it was their job. So I have 13 farms under my own watch. And going around the state and going around the region, checking on those farms, they averaged 25 to 50% mortality on that flock that was placed in March or April. We had a really cold, wet spring, and I think that was true for most of us across New York State. And birds they just died. I mean, I would walk onto farms and I'd see birds having heart attacks in front of me. It was so bad. It just caused, the cold weather caused ascites, respiratory issues, and then it caused heart attacks because the hearts couldn't hold out. So we're actually going to pull the data, and we're going to look at the mortalities more closely for this year and see if we can make recommendations for what time of year should you grow out your birds. Longer days, we're generally seeing birds are heavier at time of slaughter and they reach maturity earlier. And in hot, humid weather, we see a decrease in production because of an increase in cardiorespiratory disease, which mostly ends up in heart attacks. So environmental management in terms of broiler quality, you need to keep them dry, keep them out of the snow, and limit drafts, cold, wet birds or dead birds. And product quality is actually impacted a lot by those parameters. So keeping birds dry, keeping birds out of the mud, that's going to prevent some things like foot pad lesions. So these are, they're basically sores that are on the foot pad. And if they're severe enough, they'll actually go into the deep tissue of the foot pad and you'll have to condemn that foot. So if you sell feet, that's a problem. But it also gets birds off their feet. So they're not going to be walking as much as they should be walking simply because their feet hurt, right? So, and that's limited by keeping your broiler bedding dry. Breast blisters. So this bird is actually missing a leg too. When I processed this broiler, it had a joint infection and it had a breast blister from hitting its breast on the ground because it had a bad leg and it couldn't move around. These birds, obviously, you can't sell. You can cut around some of the parts that are affected and sell the rest. But you can also kind of tell which birds had issues. These are the birds that we keep for ourselves, but they're also birds that we're not putting into our pool to sell. Therefore, we're losing money on them. So anything that we can do to help those broilers get that perfect carcass at the end is going to be good for our bottom line. So moving forward to conclude, we're going to do our benchmarking and discussion circles for both our second year farmers who started in 2022 and our first year farmers who started in 2023, so they can get an idea of where they stand based on others across the state and themselves. We'll continue collecting data into 2024 because the more data that we have, the lower the variation is in the averages that we calculate and that we will eventually publish. The additional insights that we've come across during these first 2 years of the study is evaluating the flocks by season, which I've already shared, but also comparing efficiencies of processing. We're finding that with the limitations of availability of 5A processors, more and more folks are processing on farm, and we want to figure out what are the factors that indicate whether it's more efficient to process those broilers at an outside facility or process them on farm. So in conclusion, half the battle is efficiency of production. The other half is marketing. And I didn't include marketing because we're going to invite a panel of very knowledgeable folks up here to present on some marketing questions and give their perspectives about marketing broilers. I will say that of the 13 farms that participated in our first year, one farm was profitable. The rest were losing money. So hopefully we can gather some insights as to what makes money in broilers. So Rachel, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Amy. Also gonna turn the light on.
Maybe.
You had it.
I know.
Oh. Ooh, there we go.
That's weird. You gotta press down to turn it on. Defies all my everything. I'm gonna close her out.
Choosing farm the host again, so I can.
Oh, can you hear her? Amy, can you make choosing the farm to be the host again, please?
Oh, yes. Yep.
And I'm gonna get off, so you can stick around on Who to answer any questions and hear through
Okay.
that.
Mhm.
So that we don't have that wonky issue.
Let me make her a host. Okay. All right, we should be good to go.
And I'm leaving.
Tell me there's no echo. I think too, right?
This is my. All right, let's just get a quick introduction of who each of these folks are, how many birds you do, your history of your operation, just a thumbnail it.
I wanted to be.
All right. Let's go purple.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Robert Friedman. I own and operate Robariah Farms about 15 minutes from here in Deerfield, Massachusetts. We've been around for about 10 years, and we were growing a lot more than we are these years. We were growing about 1,500 a year, about up to about 5 years ago. We do kosher processing, so we have kind of downscaled as we're working with a local processor to increase the infrastructure that we need on the processing side. So currently we're doing about 300 to 500 birds per year. We also do a few other animals, including lamb, but our primary focus is poultry and broilers. We raise specifically Freedom Rangers also.
Actually, the panel thing. It's okay. So I'm Rachel Moody, and my husband and I operate Moody Farms, and aside from other jobs, and I'm the very beginner poultry person on this panel. So we were part of this study, but I raised 60 birds this year. Watch out. But you got to start somewhere, right? And it is not the main thing on our farm, but we are trying to increase more, and we do Cornish crosses right now.
I'm Pat McNiff from East Greenwich, Rhode Island, and thank you all for coming at the end of the day. I know everyone wants to go home and go to bed or have a snack or something, so thank you all for being here at the end of the day.
So we're in Rhode Island. We are a diversified livestock operation. So we do cattle, we do pigs, we do turkeys, laying hens, and broilers. We do about 16 to 20,000 broilers a year on pasture, anywhere from 1,200 to 1,800 layers a year on pasture, and about 600 to 700 turkeys on pasture. We did do ducks up until recently for eggs, and we just kind of stopped that program because you got to cut somewhere sometimes. So we just became a USDA inspected processing plant. We do cut wrap on large animals, and we do slaughter and kill for our poultry, and we do cut wrap for others' poultry. That's kind of brand new. We used to be under the 20,000 bird exemption and the state exemption, so which was great for a long while. But if you know Rhode Island, our borders are very close to other borders, so hence we need to be able to ship more broadly. We have a commercial kitchen, which we do a lot of value-added products, both with poultry and pork and other things as well. We rent a Grange Hall, which has become a really great part of a heat and eat program we do. And yeah, so that's I'm sure I'll say more.
Hello again. Thank you guys as well. End of day. It's tough stuff. I'm Caitlin Caserta, and I'm from Walpole, New Hampshire. I'm not too far away from here, actually. My husband and I own and operate Walpole Valley Farms in our town, and we have a bed and breakfast called the Inn at Valley Farms, and then we opened a farm to table restaurant, also in our town, but not on the farm.
Hungry Diner.
Yay, the Hungry Diner. Yeah. So Bruce is sporting the hat. Troy Bishop's sporting the hat. So it's a fun place. So in any event, we have done everything from having a cow-calf herd on grass to farrow to finished pork to Freedom Rangers on pasture, turkeys, blah, 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 heritage, everything. But now we've contracted. We were raising up to 12,000 broilers on pasture. Now we're down to about 3,000. Right now we're focusing primarily on raising for our restaurant and our loyal customers that have been with us for the past 20 years, and also our bed and breakfast in our family. So we've done a lot over the past 20 years, and now we're sort of just kind of contracting and figuring out what works best for us. So I can answer lots of marketing questions.
There you go. I'm going to use this. You don't have to pass it back to me. The next question is, farmers have the choice of processing at their own farm exempt. I'll call it exempt because not every state has a 5A program. And there's different levels there. In Vermont, it's 1,000. You can do up to 1,000. Pat could do 20,000 in Rhode Island, 20,000 in New Hampshire. So the question is, if you can do it on your own farm or at a 5A facility, or I'm going to add this, a USDA facility or even a state inspected facility, what would you do and why?
When we started out, there wasn't many options. We had no USDA plants doing any of this. There just wasn't any options. So we actually built a mobile processing unit. Originally it was going to be a farmer co-op, and we were going to all own it. And then I was designing it, and then all the farmers kind of fell away. So it became my project. So I kind of fell into processing, not that we wanted to. I still remember going to New York and going to a processing workshop, and I had never killed a chicken before in my life. And I was like, I got to just hop up there and do it. I just got to get to it. And I grew up in the suburbs of Long Island, so I'm not a farm kid. I didn't grow up killing, other than fish and fishing. That was it. So and if we had the options, we probably would have gone to a USDA plant at the time, but we built it, and then maybe it's sunk cost bias or something, but we just kept on growing it, and it gave us a real competitive advantage over a lot of other people, because we could we didn't have a 20 bird exemption. So I literally had to write the law in our state for the 20,000 bird exemption. We had to write the law to bring meat to farmers markets, and doing those things and being willing to write the law, being willing to process our own, gave us the advantage to get into those markets the first in the states to do chicken. So it was really we had to do it just because that was our option if we wanted to do this kind of work. But if I was to start out again and there was a great processing facility like Bruce, it's awesome, or somebody like that, I would have jumped on that, because it is we always say about labor, the most important ability is reliability, and processing and butchering is just not a skill set that everyone has or wants to have. So I think, and the equipment's expensive, and you have to be able to fix it, and so forth and so on. So if there was a great processor, I would start it there. But it really depends on your context in your area.
You said earlier, Pat, about our states being small, and that's really one of the main issues that farmers who are raising pastured poultry and who want to have it processed off the farm really do struggle with. So us being right on the border of Vermont and many of our customers coming to us from Vermont and even Massachusetts for that matter, we did process on farm for a long time until we opened our restaurant, and then we started processing USDA. But lots of the processors are far away, and so it's a big issue, especially in New England with these tiny little states that we have. So tiny little state. So the tiniest over here.
Is that
The
your
little guy.
answer? No.
So in any event, I think you know, if you're just starting out, trying to figure out what to do, if you're in Maine and you're in the center of Maine, that's totally different than being, you know, on the Connecticut River, in New Hampshire or Vermont or Massachusetts for that matter, or little tiny Rhode Island.
Or New York, I guess. So for us, it was kind of a no-brainer because there's you know so few birds, so it's 60 birds. So for us, it probably would have cost more money for us to drive them to a processor and get them processed. So we learned how to process birds, and my husband is born and raised right outside of Boston, not on a farm, and but he also gutted fish. Is a fisherman, so he does the dirty job. I do the cleaning. So that's what we do. And in New York, 5A is a state facility, and in New York you can do up to 999 birds is what I like to say, because once you hit 1,000, technically it's another exemption that you can apply for a larger amount, and then after that is USDA, unless you want to go state lines, and I'm 20 minutes from the Mass border, so I could potentially do that as well. But USDA plants are far and few between. So, so if you're really just starting out and you have the option to doing it yourself, can be the starter program. I also have a sister who owns a plucker, have family willing to help, so those things also help.
Yeah, I think your last point's a good one. If you've got resources and people and your operation is small enough where you can do it yourself, it's probably more cost effective, and you have kind of the margin of error to, you know, trial by fire and learn. We've had a crazy processing journey over the last 10 years. We started working with a local mobile processing unit on a trailer. We received a couple grants through SARE, through their farmer grant program, to explore the viability of outfitting at that time what was the mobile unit with the infrastructure we needed to do the kosher processing. And we quickly outgrew that mobile unit. So I started transporting the birds to USDA facilities in Pennsylvania, in New York State, that were USDA and kosher certified. Those had their own pros and cons. It's great to be able to like arrive in one place, drop off the chickens, and like get them back at the end of the day. Lots of challenges in terms of quality control for us. Our birds were different than your, you know, 4-pound Cornish cross, and I didn't have a lot of control over the processing, so it ended up not being very, the quality wasn't great, and cost-wise, it was also pretty expensive when you factor in all the transport. So we started to do on the farm processing for a couple years, and we downscaled our size. And I brought in a lot of our CSA members as volunteers, and there was a lot of enthusiasm, and it was a really great like community building situation. But in terms of reliability and processing efficiency, it was a real challenge. And you know, I'd love to be in a space where we can do a primary amount of our production in a facility and then do like smaller stuff on farm, because it really is a great marketing opportunity. It's a great community building opportunity. Now we're working with a local state certified, soon to be USDA certified facility that's in town right over from us. And I've been working with them for years, and we've been slowly building out some infrastructure. So that's really my goal, is to be able to build our capacity as he's building his capacity. And then it's kind of the best of both worlds.
Parts or whole birds? Real quick, lightning round.
Oh, we've always stuck with whole and half birds. Parts are great. People like parts, but it's an extra cost and it's an extra layer of processing and butchering that we have, to date decided to not do.
Whole birds.
Parts, 80% of our birds go to parts, and we now do a lot of value added like sausage and ground and stuff like that. It's ready. People just don't know how to cook, unfortunately, so they want to shake out a chicken breast on a pan, and that's fine. So we work that. We have good packaging equipment and everything else, which is key. And the quality, yeah, we got it. Use it, right? The quality's good, and that's the piece of owning your own plant. You can do what you want, which is nice.
Whole birds to our restaurant, which is great because commercial kitchens, chefs can use the whole bird. They can cut everything up. They can get what they need out of it. For our farm store, we definitely pay to have birds cut up and packaged perfectly so that they last a long time frozen. It's a really, for us, that is really popular, like Pat. So I think Bruce would say the same thing.
Just a quick little number thing. Parting out a bird, the return there is 168% on labor, 168% in terms of the value of that bird cut up versus as a whole bird. So if you can do it, you want to part that bird out. And we do 75%. So. All right, next one. What is the biggest pitfall? What is the biggest pitfall to profitability in broiler enterprise?
Yeah, I mean, I think,
Talking to you.
Amy talked about it in the presentation, is efficiency of feed, so getting good quality feed, getting it at the right price and efficiently feeding it while it's fresh to get that conversion ratio. If you don't get the conversion ratio, you can have all the dreams and wants you want, but if you don't get conversion ratio that produces the weight on it, and a healthy bird that doesn't have issues or anything like that, that's huge. So having a great nutritionist on board, like we use for trail minerals, we can consult with Jeff Maddox, who's written I'll put a plug in, who's written a great book. I don't remember the name of it, but he's like, I think it's the only book. So
I think it's Feeding Poultry.
Feeding Poultry.
Yeah.
Very simple name. Wonderful book. Great on nutrition. I think it's so critical to understand nutrition. And then, pasture moving, that's part of nutrition, all those kind of things. But if you don't get conversion ratios correct, if you don't, have a healthy bird that gains at the rate you need it to gain, then you're out of business, basically.
I guess mine's just a little bit different just because I'm starting out and I don't pay myself labor. So part of this, being part of this project, right now our pitfalls, the biggest one for us was I was one of the farms that bought birds in the spring. So knowing when to buy the birds and lost. I had bought 30 and I ended up with 24 making it, so just that piece of it. And then I will say also just tightening up when we do process, even for 30 birds, 60 birds, it's like an all day process. And again, not keeping track of how much I'd be paying myself. So I think just being aware of those factors.
Pitfalls of profitability. I don't know, this year or the last couple of years, just the uncertainty of weather and the climate has really impacted. So, when you're relatively small, if you're down 10 birds, 15 birds from, for every 100, it's a huge deal. And that's your profitability right there. Feed costs continue to go up. And until you're at a big enough scale where you're really able to buy feed in bulk, you're still paying a pretty good premium for feeds, and that cuts into your profitability as well. So there's not too many costs to factor into broiler production. So feed is definitely one, mortality is another, and we've had some challenges with mortality the last couple of years just due to super wet conditions. We're here in the Connecticut River Valley. The water table is like up to your ankles on a dry day. So when it does rain, it's just like, it could be a swimming pool depending where you are.
Right. Good stuff. What markets are you in, and why do they work for you?
We are in a few different markets. Geographically, we're mostly in the Pioneer Valley, though we also go into the Boston area as well. We have done institutions and co-ops as far as Portland, Maine. We, interestingly enough, as a kosher producer, we get interest in our market is really kind of 50-50. People who are seeking out a kosher product, and then just people who are seeking out a quality local product who have no idea what kosher means, but they see it and they know it means something, in the way of quality. So we've been really successful just in our local co-ops, farm markets, CSA members who just really appreciate, the high quality food product we have. And then they learn a little bit more about the processing aspect, and it kind of convinces them a little more in terms of especially the price point that we sell at.
So, we added the broilers to an already existing farm store. So I really just did word of mouth and, just a Facebook page. So again, more small scale here, but, and so a lot of it for me is also family, friends, and already existing customers that buy it. So they wanted to know if we were selling chicken. No, we just have eggs right now. Da 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 da. And we just got more questions about chicken, and we wanted to raise broilers for ourselves. So I said, well, let's try it. See if we even like doing it, because chickens are gross and messy. I have 100 and something layers at home, and so that was part of, okay, let's give it a whirl and see how this goes.
So we have a lot of different marketing channels. We in the summertime, we do 4 farmers markets in the Rhode Island area. We have 2 really great winter markets. One of which is part of Food Hub in Providence, which is killer. It's great. And we have one of the biggest markets in Providence, which is a really great market for us. We also do a food cart there where we kind of cook our sausages, we do eggs, we do breakfast sandwiches, and all this kind of things, which really kind of, we call it our perfume at the market. It kind of perfumes the market with bacon and good smells, and people kind of, what is that smell? And they come and eat, and they say, we can buy it right there. So that's a great feeder for our business. We have a on-farm store, which was a prefab Amish building we had dropped. We had always had a farm store, but limited hours. This year we made it bigger, and it's still small, but open 7 days a week with some self-checkout options. But it's actually become a real big revenue driver, and it doesn't ever seem very busy, but people are coming and psyched about it. We do a meat CSA, which is a subscription, but it's a credit system. Not like we don't give you pay a credit, you save about 10%, and then you can buy whatever you want in our store, home delivery up to a certain thing. We do home delivery, and we just recently started shipping UPS. I'm probably leaving something out. And then we do wholesale accounts too, but not very many. We were more direct to consumer before COVID. COVID solidified that decision before COVID. And we haven't really recruited more in, and with the idea that we really want to focus on direct to consumer, which is pretty large. I mean, we have a pretty large direct to consumer base. And we just, because we want to capture more of that dollar, but we do have a more complex business because of that.
We're pretty similar to Pat. Online sales, curbside pickup at our farm store. So essentially you can order online and pick up 7 days a week. We also have farm store hours once a week. We don't do non-staffed farm store hours as of right now. That's what the curbside pickup is for us. Just because we have so many products that it's tough to not have a person there to describe what everything is. Here you go. Here's how you cook it. Blah 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 blah. So that's really worked for us. And then everything else gets sold to our restaurants. So we don't have a lot of wholesale customers anymore. We sell our eggs at a co-op, and then everything else is either retail, direct to consumer, or to our restaurant. We also serve our meats and eggs at our inn. So that's also, wholesale to us, sort of, back to our own, another entity, but owned by us. So we have a market kind of built in, which is nice. So, yeah.
Yeah.
We're in our final minute. Any questions from the in-person audience? Go. The question for the
Fresh
online
frozen.
audience is, what's the preference in your experience, fresh or frozen?
So what we do is majority of our products fresh. During the season, we bring stuff that we process that week to the market fresh. And it's definitely a great, like, ooh, it's fresh. And they're psyched about it because they can take it home and cook it. We have a fish seller there. And, you know, again, I'd watch people go over there and they'd have this line. I'm like, we just need to, when we have it, we're just sticking it in the freezer. So we take and we sell a fair bit of it. But we also sell a ton of frozen at the same time because people don't want to deal with it in the middle of summer, even though we have tons of ice on everything else. They're walking home or going, you know, I get people all the time be like, I have this fresh chicken. I have to go out for like 3 hours of errands and it's 90 degrees. Do you mind if I just think I can leave it in my car? I'm like, no, don't think you can leave it in your car. So that's cool, but it is great because that does drive people to our. And then and then the winter time, we just explain we freeze it because we don't raise chickens when there's no pasture. So it allows us an opportunity to differentiate our product that, you know, no, it's in the freezer because it was walking around on pasture and beautiful time of year. So
I've only had one person ask me about fresh or frozen. We are also so small, it's kind of limited. So I also just told them if they wanted fresh, that I will tell them when we're processing and they can come pick it up.
We've generally always been a CSA, and we do like 3 batches throughout the year. So for us, doing fresh is really not an option. So, you know, we've never had customers complain that it's not fresh per se. I think, you know, ideally people would get their meat fresh. But the frozen product lasts a long time, and you know, when you're only doing it a few times a year, and to your point, when it's, you know, seasonal, then, you know, and we're selling like 20 chickens to one customer, they're going to use that throughout the year. So we freeze it for shelf life.
There's I know that Pat and us, we do all our turkeys frozen, even though people like supposedly fresh turkeys. There's really no such thing as a fresh turkey for Thanksgiving. It's not true.
frozen is considered. Just so you all know, if you're
Drop the mic.
oh, come on, bros. It's the end of the day. Yeah, frozen. The USD considered 28 degrees fresh, and so you can have a, which if any of you stand outside naked in 28 degrees, it wouldn't be fresh. You wouldn't be fresh. You'd be frozen. So think about it for a turkey. Just telling you, and they so all these places couldn't process the turkey load right before Thanksgiving. So we started freezing them. It's much easier on our quality. They're hard frozen. The quality is great. We can figure out the customers. I've never had a customer come back to me not saying that was the best turkey we've ever had in our lives. Never. I've never had someone, oh, I could taste the frozen. Like never was that said ever.
Even if it's freezer burned.
Oh. Oh, pretty similar. Go ahead.
Curious, especially as you guys got bigger, at what point do you feel like fast food culture doesn't buy a lot? How many chickens?
Question is, what size is this correct? What size do you need to be at for it to really be a viable enterprise?
That's a really good question. I'm going to defer to someone else because I feel like I'm not as close to the numbers as my husband is. So
I think, you know, it's a moving target to answer a question. Is there context of how you want to be what about yourself? Do you want to have employees? What's the quality of life you want to have? I think, you know, what you have to do is think about, like, when I think about numbers, as my head said, Bruce and I have gone through ranch management consulting, and I think about gross margins to your enterprise. Like, so what's your gross margin for your enterprise? What's your gross margin per bird? And then how does it cover your other overheads in your business, like your truck and your reefer unit or whatever it is? And I think those numbers are very telling, both forecasting wise, but then hitting your forecasts and then calculating what you need to make as a living. So I could say 1 million, and I could be wrong. You could do a 1 million and still not make any money, because it's really contextualized to what are your direct costs, how are you controlling them, how much do you want to make, what do you want to live on, what salary you want to live on, everything like that. And then you can really figure that out. So, you know, the direct cost piece is really like you said, bros, really direct cost is easy to figure out sort of. The question is the efficiency of that direct cost, labor, feed efficiency, pricing related to processing, how you calculate those and what they are and recording them, that really is your profitability. And if you're like, well, we put like 2 bags in last week, you know, like watching these numbers, I'm not saying you have to be as detailed as this because we're all not Cornell, but you have to know your, no, there's right. No, but I'm just saying like at the end of the year, we get, yeah, right. Exactly. But you have to have some way of tracking those things. So that's your profitability right there. And then you just calculate out what number you want to be at. So I can't give you I wish I could say like 3,000 and you'll be good, but it's just not that simple because you're where you are. Feed costs are really variable. If you're in bags, right? So we spend 26 cents a pound on feed right now for broilers, right? 26, yeah, delivered to our farm. If you buy it at Tractor Supply, it's probably 38, 40, I don't know, 50. I don't even know what Tractor Supply goes for. So that's going to affect your profitability really massively. So.
What if you could say any questions? I have to go, I'm running this, so let's shut down online and then you guys chat in.
Okay, sure.
Sure.
Awesome. So, someone want to say it?
Sure.
On the mic.
And I think if there's more questions, I mean, there's like
There's Hoover.
I was gonna say there's Hoover, and Pat's information is there and Rob's information is there. Nobody wants to talk to me because I'm a beginner person, but I'm my information's
I'm
there all
also
in the
happy. I'm
bios.
Pat-
And
Pat's
Bruce
side,
too,
yeah.
yep, and Caitlin, so we're all, yep, APPPA.
Can I put one plug before we get offline? I think the 2 plugs I would say resource wise one was Jeff's book. Awesome. Own it. Should be something you should own. And Jeff is a great resource personally and for Trellis. 2 is APA. So, we're now you're former board members. Oh, not so much. Okay. Current board members and us, we do and I'm a member too. It's the best money, you know, talk about profitability and what's the best money you can spend. It's like, what's that base membership? 35, 50 bucks, $50, the best $50 you ever spend if you want to get into this industry. That our listserv is amazing. You ask a question, you get 10 responses from people who are beginners to people who have been doing it forever. The conference is amazing. We just had it last week. It was in Dallas. You know, you'll spend 3 days and get tens of thousands of dollars of education there. American Pastured Poultry Producers. So a lot of P's. There's 3 P's, not 1, not 2, 3. Yeah, it is by far the best money you can spend if you're starting an operation, if you're in an operation. I've been doing this now, I don't know, 18 years. And every time I go, I have pages of learnings that just, you know, a guy from Arkansas is doing something different. I'm like, wow.
It's transformational stuff. It really is.
Information,
Accurate.
which is really wonderful.